Hola, everyone. Welcome to Open Hybrid, coming to you from Chari Executive Suite. I'm Rhina Valentin, your host of Café con Leche every Friday, continuing the celebration of Latinx Heritage Month. Here's what's coming up in today's show. Leading things off, we'll speak to director and co-founder of the Bronx Hispanic Festival and the New York Latin American Art Triennial, Luis Stephenberg, to talk about Abya Yala Structural Origins exhibition and how you can attend this year's Triennial celebration throughout the city. After that, we're joined by poet, author, director, and award-winning playwright Juan Rodriguez as she discusses the magical elements of spiritual realism in her new book, Urban Folktales. Later on in the show, Bobby C brings us an up-to-date with the latest headlines in the world of sports. And lastly, this week's Open Artist Spotlight shines on dancer and artist Ashley Cruz with a performance at the end of the show. So sit back y prepárate. All this and more is headed your way, because now we are officially open. Hey everyone, welcome to Open Hybrid. I'm Rhina Valentin, your host of Café con Leche for the next hour, coming to you from Cherry Executive Suite, inviting you to get social with us online. Tweet us and follow us on Instagram at BronxNet TV and like us on Facebook at Open BronxNet Television. And of course, while you're there, follow moi on Twitter, FB, Instagram, Insta Stories, and LinkedIn at Rhina Valentin. In today's episode, we're going to continue the celebration of Latinx Heritage Month, highlighting the New York Latin American Art Triennial 2022, which began September 3rd, 2022, and will be on display through January 28th, 2023. NILA, which is its acronym, 2022, will bring together more than 200 artists exhibiting their works in 7 venues throughout New York City, featuring exhibitions, performances, short films, screenings, outdoor installations, interactive workshops, panel discussions, and more. And it's free to the public. And this year's theme, the title is Abya Yala, Structural Origins, which in the Kuna language means land in its full maturity or land of vital. And here to share more about this fascinating event is director and co-founder of the Bronx Hispanic Festival and the New York Latin American Art Triennial. Please welcome Luis Stephenberg.
Thank you, Rhina, for having us in your program, in your great program. I have some positive energy.
Wonderful. Oh, thank you. What a wonderful greeting. I tried to put in as much as I could about this phenomenal festival that you've curated and put together, and obviously in recognizing it as a triennial affair, it's taking you 3 years to put it together?
Yes, we do. Yes, 3 years.
So talk us through its origins, right? Because I know that prior to getting on air, you were sharing that there was a transition. So can we start with the association that the Bronx Hispanic Festival has with the New York Latin American Art Triennial, so that we're clear about those dynamics?
Yeah, the Bronx Hispanic Festival produced several events during the month of Hispanic heritage. And one of them is the visual art component. We developed the Bronx Latin American Art Biennial by 2008, and it was very successful. I worked together with Alexis Mendoza, that also is the chief curator of the project. And we developed the project in a very positive way, all the way through 2019, where we understand that we're going to be in all boroughs of New York, And also 3 years will give us a little more time to get ready for it. And that's what we did. And that's the reason that now is the New York Latin American Art Triennial.
And so it's already open, and right, because it opened September 3rd, but it has different openings at different venues. Now, will they all remain open until January, though?
No, some of them will finish by November. Lehman's College will be until January. Hostels also will be until January. Yes,
Okay.
and Boricua College as well. Boricua College is going to have a graffiti show, something that is very new for us this year, and we are very proud of produce that particular exhibit.
Well, the title itself and the intention behind it, in using Kuna language, right? Can we just share a little bit about why the indigenous language of certain, I would say South American, South American,
yes.
That's where that language is used, right? So why have you chosen to also introduce this as the title of the overall program?
Well, the project itself is a project about challenging the concept of art, the artist, and the presence of art in the communities. So every event have a very particular subject or theme that invite to think and to have a philosophical reflection of our social environment and socioeconomic realities. Of course, everything is tied up with our roots as Latin Americans in a country, in a foreign country. So Abya Yala in this moment was the linkage with the Aborigines of the America, and Abya Yala was the way that they called the continent, not the European name that was labeled later on. So we thought about that it was moment to bring the Aborigine heritage to the presence of the arts, international arts, understanding that these people that was in this land from the beginning still be the oppressed people, still be the people that their culture doesn't reflect the mass media, for example. So there is the connection, and as a humble project is an homage to the founders of this land,
right?
The real founders,
right. Understood, because I understand that you also operate with understanding, or rather with the intention of educating and advocating the preservation of the historic cultural legacies of Latin America and the Caribbean, and our fundamental role in contributing to this nation.
Yes, and there we connect with we calling for the historical development, where also the Africans come in, and of course the Europeans come in, and this is the art, and this is the history of that art.
Now, we don't have the time to mention all of the 200 artists, but what would be great is if you could give us just a vision of what we could anticipate visiting the different venues. And we have to do that as succinct as possible, but I would love for people to get an idea of how this has been curated throughout New York City.
Oof. Well, we have Melquiades from Puerto Rico in Lehman's College. You can see his sculpture that is inspired in the alphabet of the Taínos, Egyptians, and modern alphabets. You have Pablo Olguera in Hostels Community College. doing a performance by November 18th. Today is the opening of Pace University gallery that is next to the city hall, and that's so nice that you can walk in that area and be able to having this Latino creative explosion in the first floor of Pace University. There we have Sandra Monterroso, that is a very well-known indigenous from Guatemala, and also it's a woman. The role of women in this show is also very important, and they are very present. So we are also in Governor's Island until November, and we have a house there that also is accommodate several artworks. So in general, by November we have the graffiti Bronx artists. So most of them are Bronx artists in Boricua College Gallery. As you know, Boricua is setting themselves very strong in the South Bronx. They also going to open a theater very soon. So it's a lot of 200 artists.
I know there's 200 artists, and I just wanted our viewers to have a better understanding of how they can experience this, right? Because this is going to be on display. Well, the majority of them will be on display until January of 2023. But the idea is that there's so many different venues that are hosting this particular festival, this triennial, and it's a different experience for each one. And do people just go to the galleries, or they go to the website and look at the different hours and basically, what do you want people to leave with?
Well, what I gonna just mention anecdote very fast, and maybe this will explain something. The first biennial Peruvian artist and curator was coming to the airport with a large roll of paintings, because it's a marginal project. We need to improvise, things like that. So when he's coming through the aduana, right, the guard say, "What are you having in that big thing?" And he say, "Oh, I'm bringing paintings art to the Bronx, to an art show." And he laughed. The aduana guy laughed and say, "What you need is a large gun if you go into the Bronx."
Wow.
Wow, this is years ago. And he say, "What are you talking about?" So he came several times, and at that moment we brought artists from South America to the Bronx, and the name of the Bronx was in the newspapers in Argentina, Brazil. Not talking about negative, he was talking about positive cultural international relations. And now we're still in the Bronx, and we still in New York City, something that born in the Bronx, not too many years ago. So that is what it's about. It's about empowering ourselves in a positive way.
Well, and we thank you. Thank you for your efforts. Thank you for putting so much of yourself into this. You can tell you're very passionate about it. Thank you. That's Luis Stephenberg, everyone. He is the director and co-founder of the Bronx Hispanic Festival and the New York Latin American Art Triennial, which is what we've been discussing. And once again, the New York Latin American Art Triennial 2022 is running from September 3rd. It's already open through January 28th. 2023 in 7 venues throughout the city, including several Bronx locations such as the Bronx Art Space, Longwood Art Gallery at Hostess Community College, and at Lehman College Art Gallery and Boricua College. And that's just naming a few. Go to their website if you want more information on the Bronx Hispanic Festival and the New York Latin American Art Triennial 2022. You can visit BxHispanicFestival.org and NYLAAT.org. All right, we have to take a quick break, but when we return, we're going to speak with an author about her upcoming book based on the true life experiences of people who live in working poor and working class neighborhoods of New York City. Don't go anywhere. Everyone, welcome back. Our next guest is a published and produced award-winning playwright, poet, author, and director who has had her plays produced in Broadway theater companies throughout Manhattan. And in her latest book, Urban Folk Tales, she shares the stories of the working poor and working class neighborhoods of New York through the lens of spiritual realism with a magical pencil. Please welcome playwright, poet, author, and director, Y. Rodriguez.
Thank you.
Here with us. And to begin, I thought it would be interesting for us before we speak about the topic at hand, which is Urban Folk Tales, which is in pre-order. I wanted to share with our viewers a little bit of your trajectory as a playwright, as a singer-songwriter, as a poet, and now an author. So can you just share what that journey looked like in a succinct manner, of course?
Well, I guess it all starts with who I am and how I began in this world as the daughter of Silverio and Angelina Rodriguez, who were two migrants to this country in the 1940s. And then, like our community, so many who come to this country, they went through their particular struggles. We lived on the Upper West Side. I was born in Hell's Kitchen, and my parents, despite all of the obstacles, despite all of the racism that we were encountered in the city, they managed to be level-headed and still be very loving and creative people. My mother was a poet, unpublished. She was also a songwriter, like I am, more talented, I think, that I will ever be. And my father also subscribed to the arts as well. So I think that's where it all kind of started, because they had an affinity to the arts, not only as patrons, but also as artists. Although, of course, the opportunities, or the little opportunities that are here with us now, there was nothing back then for them, of course. But I think that's where it all started, because I had that influence from both of them, really.
Right. So you were born into it. When did you start?
I guess I started writing when I was a little girl. My first poem, I think I wrote when I was like 7 or 8 years old. My first song I wrote like that, about that same age. And then, of course, as I grew, I attended school to study journalism. I was an investigative reporter for a community newspaper here in the city. And then I said to myself, I'd like to be able to write creatively. So that's when I started my journey in playwriting with the Puerto Rican Traveling Theater and Miriam Colon and the wonderful legacy that she leaves behind for this community. And it just kind of evolved from there. Not only was I writing plays, but of course I was still writing music and songs and poetry, and it just kind of everything just fed into each other. And this particular collection of short stories is, again, based on those experiences in my life and memorable ones that really warranted this collection.
Well, that's a wonderful lead into urban folk tales, which again, yo estoy entregada. I'm already engulfed in it, and I don't even have the entire book. But just the way you write, and also this term of spiritual realism, and what I've gathered in the work that I have read is that you have a lot of political undertone, but then you kind of like allow it to be relatable from a place of just normalizing the essential workers, the essential people in being the heroes and being the main characters. Really, is what it's about.
Yeah,
Right?
because that's what I grew up around, right? My family, my parents, my siblings, my friends, everyone around me. That working class, working poor neighborhood, where you find people who are not only doing their best to survive, like the characters in the book, but also doing their best to find that beauty and that moment of inspiration so that they can continue and they can inspire the people who come after them as well.
Now, you mentioned that some of these stories, or most of them, are actual real stories that you inserted some form of magic realism inside of it. Like, I'm really interested in the erasable man. Metaphorically speaking, it's very profound.
Thank you. And, I just want to, before I address that, you mentioned the political undertones of the book. And that was a very, I did that on purpose to make these historical references. In one of the stories, The Manicurist, it's about a woman who works in a nail salon who's from El Salvador. And she was part of that whole 12-year war in El Salvador in the 1980s to the early 1990s. That's a historical reference to that in the story, as well as there's one sentence about the kindly priest who was assassinated by the paramilitary police. That's a reference to Oscar Romero, who was assassinated in his church. And several other references, historical references. So I just wanted to address that point that you made about political undertones. That's very important. And insofar as they're not true stories, they're moments that happened, that occurred to me. Like, for instance, in the nail salon, I went to a nail salon in Washington Heights, and I was just getting them filed and polished and whatever else. And I noticed that the woman who was doing it would always make the sign of the cross as she was done polishing the nails. And I looked at her and I asked her, "Are you making the sign of the cross on my nails?" She said, "Yes." So that really intrigued me, Rhina. That was so riveting and so vivid that it stayed with me, that I knew I had to create this fictitious world around that one person in that one moment. So all the little stories are like that. There's these little moments. The erasable man, that moment happened when I went out with a friend who invited me out after work to go dancing with her and her friend. So here I am dancing with this guy. He takes, it's getting hot. He takes off his jacket, he rolls up his sleeves, and I see what looked like a very long white scar against his black skin. So I say, "Listen, are you okay? Do you want to leave?" He said, "No, I'm erasing myself." And just like you're reacting now, I was like, that's how I reacted. And I didn't know if he was nuts or he was just being very honest. And I left it at there. And, we continued with the evening, but that also stayed with me. And I said, I have to write a story about that moment and just create this whole fictitious world around why someone would do that. And that became the character that's in that particular story. So each of the stories have, except for Laura and the Kickboxer, that's more of sort of in a real story, was based in reality. There are no jumps to or elevations to spiritual magical realism. But most of the stories have that element to some extent, but based on those little moments that, as a New Yorker, right?
Yes.
The street, you go around the corner and you see something and you just can't believe, and just the other day, something like that happened to me that I've never seen in all the years I've been here. And maybe one day I'll write a story about that because it was so profound and so, it left me breathless. That
even reading, you're leaving me breathless, to be honest with you, because I'm just curious to know how you're able to craft from an experience this whole elaborate story of I want to go back to the Erasable Man because it just stuck with me, and I can only imagine what that inventor looks like erasing himself and then becoming an entirely different color, to see what that feels like and how he exists. I hope I didn't give too much away. Did I give anything away?
No, it's okay. It's fine.
And how at the end it really, well, I don't want to give too much away, but the idea of it really being a story of humanity, a story about humanity, that's really what all of them are, really. But that particular one, in trying to find a new identity and rediscover themselves, and just really getting to that place of dealing with different situations or different problems based on the differences.
Well, that particular story, it's a Black Cuban kid who lives in Washington Heights, and he can never hail a cab. He works at a drugstore, and he's always feeling the racism. Just the other day, something happened to me. I mean, this is stuff that we always have to deal with in New York City. Yes, liberal New York City. Yes, there is racism here too. So for him to, and I won't give away the story either, to choose to erase his color in order to survive, or what he thinks he might be, how he might be able to survive because of the color of his skin. I mean, that makes a point about where we are as a country, as a nation, in this world, really, about still racism still being very much a part of our lives, unfortunately.
It very much is, and color does matter, and I wish it didn't.
I mean, how many times did another person, so where are you from? I'm like, well, why wouldn't I be from where you are? Why are you making that distinction? So now I have to make a distinction about you.
Right.
Fortunately.
Right.
Now we're in the same struggle, in this society. And
right, because it was invited to the space. And what difference should it make anyway? Is that going to determine how we're going to be dealing with each other?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how I wrote these stories, Rhina, just to get to your question, even my work as a playwright or a poem or a poet, or even as a song, sometimes it's just that one little image that I have to go with. And then, it's just a matter of practice, practice, and sitting down at your desk and in front of your typewriter or your computer, or your laptop, whatever, and just banging it out and working it out and crafting it out day after day after day after day after day, until you feel that, wow, I think I've told a clear story, because that's really important to me, that it's clear, that it has a beginning, middle, and end. And when you're working with so many different elements and so many different voices and so many different characters and settings, sometimes you get lost and sometimes things get muddled. So you have to keep going back. So it is really just working at it, like everything else, where you feel comfortable, like, okay, this is something that I'm pretty proud of. I think I did a good job. So it isn't until I get to that point where I feel, okay, I think I can let this go and maybe start my next project or whatever. But it's all a matter of just work.
Right. But it's also knowing your work style, right? And really what we were discussing was your writing style and your process. And thank you for sharing that, even possibly to assist any aspiring writers and authors, because what you shared is very, they're golden nuggets. And so before we go, we have to share with our viewers how your book is on pre-order, but that you are going to be doing a big launch and book signings and possibly going on tour. What should we leave them with?
Well, the book is published by Read Furiously Press, readfuriouslypress.com, but it's in pre-order now. So that means that you can pre-order the book in any bookstore in the country. You can go to Barnes and any single bookstore, including Amazon. You can find it on Amazon as well, and pre-order it. It'll be released next April 4th, 2023. And I'm hoping that people like it, and I'm hoping that it does leave, as you said, it leaves you with something. It leaves the reader with something maybe to think about, maybe an idea, maybe an image, something, so that maybe they can start looking at life a little differently, or help me to look at life a little differently as well. But I would like to feel that I can leave the reader with something memorable.
And which you have. All right. So thank you. Thank you for your efforts in making a difference, everyone. That's why Rodriguez, poet, author, director, singer-songwriter, and award-winning playwright. Urban Folk Tales, again, is currently available for pre-order. And for more information, you can visit readfuriously.com. Stay tuned because Bobby C's Weekly Sports Roundup is coming up next.
Last time in the Sports Corner, we spoke to Buzz Bissinger about his latest book, The Mosquito Bowl. Here's the continuation of that interview.
Talk about improbable. My dad was a Marine at Okinawa. I know he was a private. I didn't know what he did. I didn't know what his job classification was. And so I was doing the book early on. I said, and he never talked about it. So I felt that's his zone of privacy. I have to respect that. But muster rolls are pretty easy to find. Marine records are in pretty good shape. And I look at the time frame of end of 44, 45. There's his name, my name, and there's his name on the muster roll, not only as a Marine, as a rifleman, but he's in one of the regiments that I'm writing about. And that blew me away. And then people said, well, do you think he went to the game? And I said, I don't know. All I can tell you is here's the criteria. My father loved sports. My father loved to drink, and my father loved to gamble. So he hit the trifecta. So he really well could have been there. And I'm sure he knew of some of the players that I wrote about because they were big names. I mean, like Dave Schreiner was well known all over the country, a two-time All-American. John McLowry had been a big star at Brown and played for the New York Giants. So I'm sure he knew who these guys were because every Marine did on Guadalcanal. Athletes are athletes. They're always big. They're always important. College football was really big then. And, they sort of hang together. So everyone knew who they were.
You win the Pulitzer at age 32. At the time that you write Friday Night Lights, you had already basically won the Triple Crown of awards. The book has had so much success with the film and the TV series and continued copies being purchased. Is it hard to kind of I think of someone like Orson Welles, right? And Citizen Kane, you make this great film. It's almost impossible to follow it up. Was there any of that thought process?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
the next book?
There have been moments in the journey of Friday Night Lights, which is now, I think, 32 years old. The run has been incredible. I mean, the book has not stopped for 32 years. It still sells tens of thousands of copies. I get emails about it, going on book tour. I'm asked about it, constantly. I had no idea, but as it took off, it screwed them up with my head, because I think we all want to advance in life if we're ambitious. We all want to top what we've done. And, I don't know if I ever can. Now, I think I've written a better book and a more important book, and I hope it does what Friday Night Lights did. But my father sat me down at one point, because I like to moan about things and complain and whine. And, it wasn't mean, but he said, "This is a good problem to have. I don't quite understand why this is screwing with your head. You've written this book. It's become iconic. People love it. They respect it. It's a movie. It's a TV series. What's not to like?" And bit by bit, I realized he was right. Celebrate it. Don't reject it. Celebrate it. But it's also become a motivation of, can I do better? Can I do something more important, more resonant, a stronger, more poignant, dramatic story? And I think I've done that with the Mosquito Bowl. It was nice that I knew that I could go back and do the kind of work that I had done when I was a young man. That was very gratifying. I still got it. And that was important to know and nice to them.
I think another thing that stands out in the book for the fans at home is just the concept of basically just such a different era. I mean, college football at that time, so much larger, bigger than the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, the NFL had a very diminished reputation then. Among college coaches, they were sort of thugs, they were losers. And at that point in time, college coaches advised players, don't go into the pros. Play hard, play here, get an education, and then get on with your life and get a job. They were very, very dismissive of it. And college football was huge. Now, during the war years, a lot of men were gone, and the Navy saved college football with their officer training programs and allowed men to play football before they shipped overseas. But it was still big, even in the 40s. Notre Dame Army, 60 or 70,000 at Yankee Stadium. Even during the war years, Notre Dame went out to play USC in the annual game. So that's what people gravitated to. And I think football was, they always say baseball is the national pastime. But if you look at attendance figures, college football was overwhelmingly, more popular. And that's part of the book to get into. And there's very little football in it. I mean, a friend of mine, and she was a woman. It doesn't matter. But she said, I don't really care about football, and I don't really care about war, which are two aspects of the book. But she said, I love the book because she loved the portrayal of the characters that I wrote about. And that was the goal. I don't want you to care about football. I don't want you to care about war necessarily. I want you to fall in love with these men and see just the horror they went through and their willingness to sacrifice and lose their lives if that was what was called for. They didn't want to lose their lives. They weren't crazy heroes, but they knew this is part and parcel of serving your country in the Marine Corps.
What is that, in wrapping up our conversation, Buzz, and thank you so much again for taking time with us this morning. What was that process like for you in terms of trying really to humanize war?
It's like anything in life when you're reporting on a long-term project. There are moments of terror and fear. I'm not going to get at it. I'm certainly not going to make things up. But when I began to get letters that these guys had written and realized the families had kept a wonderful paper trail, I became more and more confident. And, I fell in love with these guys. I'll never know them. I'm sorry I don't know them. But as I wrote, I kept a picture of one of them, an incredible athlete, pure All-American. When we think of All-American, we will think of Dave Shriner, who was a two-time All-American from Wisconsin. And I kept the picture next to me. Why am I writing this? I'm writing in many ways to preserve the memory of great men from World War II, because we're losing them. We're losing them by the hundreds every day. They may all be gone in 10 years. And I want these men memorialized, because we forget, at Veterans Day, it pops up, but we forget. And then looking at his picture, I would get a little choked up because it looked like my dad. My dad was 19, but they were all babies in a sense. And when I look at Shriner, I say the word waste. Obviously, it wasn't waste. He was serving our country, but he had, so much life ahead of him. He was in love. He wanted to get married. He wanted to have kids. He wanted to raise a family. He wanted a dog. He wanted to be a coach or maybe even a doctor, and he got none of it. And in battle, No matter how many people are around you, you die alone. You die alone. That's what war is, because in many cases you got to move on. I mean, you can't linger. You try to save somebody, but you got to move on, because if you don't move on, you're going to get killed. And so the whole thing is indescribable. You're in a foxhole, and you love that guy. That guy's protecting you. You're protecting him. You're brothers, and you turn around, and you can hear of a bullet, because they don't make a lot of sound like they do in the nonsensical movies. And you see that he's been shot in the helmet, and you can see the little hole in the helmet, and it's gone through his brain. And you want to cry, but you can't. You have to move on to the extent. And sometimes you take someone who's died and you use the body as a shield so you don't get killed. There's a lot in the book about just how horrific war is, and that's on purpose. We have to know. Movies sanitize; they only go so far. I wanted people to see just how horrifying it is, how random it is, how quick thinking you have to be, and ultimately, in the end, it's luck that keeps you alive, and it's luck that kills you.
Heartbreaking, but an incredible story, Buzz.
Well, thank you. This was fun.
Mosquito,
where'd you get the coat? Where'd you get the jacket?
I got it in Harlem, actually. Anytime we want to go shopping together, I don't know if I can keep up with you financially, but be happy to go shopping.
Don't worry, I can't keep up financially. My wife, when she's really mad at me, she brings it up. Did you have matching pants?
I do, and I'm wearing them even on the Zoom.
Holy smokes! This guy's decked.
I mean, you're a Pulitzer Prize winner. I mean, you got to bring out your best. So
here we go. Wait, my wife wants to see. Go ahead. Look, wait, and he's got a pocket thing. Oh my God!
Pocket square.
You're the best dressed host I've been with in ages.
This says a lot. I mean, Dan Patrick, you've been on some great shows, so.
Oh, you're much better dressed than Dan Patrick. And you're nicer. Dan's so mopey all the
time. Well, Buzz, I wanted to thank you again. And before we head out, just of course, the Mosquito Bowl is a story of these brave young men and women that we've spoken about this morning that survived.
And women, that's correct.
That did not, and the families and landscapes that shaped them. It is available at all major retailers. Please pick it up today. It's a great read.
Well, thank you. And it was a pleasure being on. Thank you very much.
We built a media network for you.
BronxNet TV.
Come learn in your new state-of-the-art studios at Lehman College.
At Mercy College.
And coming soon to the South Bronx in the Hub.
Inspire with your stories, culture, history.
Your Bronx on BronxNet.
Engage with us.
Connect with us at your channels and at BronxNet.tv.
Learn, engage, inspire. BronxNet TV.
From the Bronx
to the world.
BronxNet.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Open Hybrid. Our next guest is, she's living out her dream. Yeah. At the age of 12, she began training in various dance styles such as mambo, salsa, and multiple forms of hip hop. And instead of accepting a scholarship to one of New York City's most prestigious universities, NYU, she went against the grain to live out her dream. And so her energy and charisma, and of course her development has allowed her to hit the stage with some of the music industry's biggest acts. Acts such as Beyonce, Lady Gaga, Cardi B, Selena Gomez, Megan Trainor, so Weetie, and that is just to name a few. This is really exciting because, when you go for it, she really went for it, let's say, right? And so now she has these new endeavors that she's building, which is a platform called Cruise with Ashley. And that's designed to inspire young girls everywhere to think big and follow their dreams. Please welcome dancer and artist, Ashley Cruz. Hello, hello, hello.
Oh, you made it sound even more exciting. I love it.
Well, I think it's just important that whomever is watching and questioning whether they should do the college thing or pursue their dream, that nobody's discouraging anybody from pursuing higher learning. But there's also that learning from experience that happens as well, and you're a living example of that.
Yes. I like to say that the industry and the entertainment business has been my college. It was just my choice of the way that I wanted to experience life. And it worked out for me. And it can work out for many others, or it can be the college life. I can't say that sometimes I'm not like, I wish I had that experience. But I'm truly, truly, truly grateful for my path and my journey.
Well, I mean, I just said the names, right? But just Queen Bee herself, like, and if I'm not mistaken, you were in the choreography for the Oscar presentation she did, right?
Yeah, that was super full circle. Because one of the biggest jobs that I've done, and the job that was able to actually set me up for success here in California, was Beachella, when we did Coachella. And it was just full circle to have done the Oscars just recently with her, because it's just like put like a little confirmation on like my whole journey here in California. So it was really, really, really great. It's a really full circle moment.
And so, of all the different celebrities you danced alongside, which has been the most challenging to choreograph? Not you choreograph, but work with choreography.
It's always such a hard question, because sometimes it's like retention based, sometimes it's like athletic based. But I can say that Beachella was definitely the most challenging. I mean, like if you saw Homecoming on Netflix, you saw the blood, sweat, and tears that went into that. So yeah, that was definitely like what set me up for the longevity in the business here in California. Really set me up for success.
And so when you say the longevity, you're referring to the roll into the next choreography. And also, is there like a choreography coalition of some sort? I'm just curious because because there's somebody who's choreographing this, and then there's these mainstream celebrities who are hiring those choreographers and or have their own choreographers who then hire the dancers. And it's its own community. So how does that work?
You just said it. Community. It's definitely community based. It's important to go out and support the choreographers when the choreographers are teaching from the ground. Like a lot of these choreographers have been doing this for so long, so it's really important to support them from the ground. And then as they continue to rise and choreograph with these artists, to continue to support them, and then also go out and network and be amongst the community, like you said, and just making sure you also do your due diligence on like social media and make sure that they can best fight for you and putting you in these positions for these large opportunities. So you said it best, definitely just staying amongst the community of choreographers and dancers and agencies, and just like really be like in the life, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And so before we came on air, and thank you for sharing that for any aspiring dancers who want to live out this touring career, right? Because that's almost in the realm of like sometimes you get booked for a tour to travel with these artists as well, right? So what does that look like, right? Is it a couple of months, or like what kind of arrangements are made with that? Do they rotate dancers? I've always been very curious about how it looks like from your perspective, from the dancer's perspective.
Yeah. So from our perspective, it varies. It varies. Like I'm going on like a 2-week tour next month, 2 weeks, right? But I've also been on a tour that lasted a couple of months. Some dancers tour for a year, years even. So it definitely varies. And then there's also like what I've been fortunate to be a part of the last couple of years since post-pandemic, is just to also be mostly in one place, which is here in California, and also just like work from here. There's so many like award shows and TV shows that go on from being also in one place. And yeah, so it honestly just varies. With touring, it can go from a week to 2 weeks to a couple of months to years. And
no, I'm smiling. I'm smiling because thanks for sharing that. Because you just recently did the VMAs and you were dancing alongside Nicki Minaj. I was like, oh,
yes, and I wouldn't have been able to do something like that if I was out on tour, you know. So that was pretty amazing.
I would imagine so. But how do you decide though? How do you decide? You know what? I think I'm going to sit this one out, and I don't think I'm going to take that tour. How do you make those decisions?
They are definitely hard. It definitely takes a village. It definitely takes a few phone calls to like a mentor and like a friend and, you know, maybe a family member. But I just also like really listen to my intuition and what's right for me now. I didn't always have that because in the beginning of my career, it was like, yes. But now it's definitely been what is going to propel me forward in the other things that I also want to do. So sometimes it's nice to sit right here and be placed and work on other things like acting and like growing my business, while I can also be a part of iconic things like a Vanguard performance with Nicki Minaj.
You have to bring it back to that. Yeah. I was like, oh, that's what's up. I love that. Yeah. And so before we got on the air, you mentioned that you were working with movement now. So that also loans itself, right? Because the idea is that you're almost like an artist of movement, of the body and how that. So are you doing choreography as well?
That's so good. The way you explained it, so good. So yeah, basically it's I like to say I like to keep it on the movement direction because I just really value and respect choreographers. So I definitely do movement coaching and movement directing. So I've been grateful to be on these sets, and you know, managers and labels, they see me, and I also have mentors that put me into positions. Shout out to Tia Rivera and Donna. And they've put me in these positions to go ahead and work.
Tia Rivera is a powerhouse.
Yes, she is.
Can we just say who she is though before you? We gotta mention her really quick because I mean she went from being a dancer to being the choreographer of Beyonce's Oscar performance.
Yeah, she's a choreographer. She's straight out of Brooklyn. So repping New York, and yeah, just like really like showing up for Latina, showing up for minorities, showing up for, you know, past dancers. Like she's been killing the game. And she works hand in hand with these artists. And yeah, so I've just been grateful to also shadow like women who are in that position. And now I'm able to have almost like a whole nother like career, you know, in movement directing, setting up artists, their set lists and like what song transitions and should you be on the mic stand here, and like is your set going to be more sexy and sultry or more of like a vibe and more grounded. So that's kind of where I've been amongst doing the other things and still dancing. But it's been really, really nice to see what being a dancer can also like open in terms of opportunities.
Right, because you're still in the field, just working a different aspect of it.
Exactly.
You work in that business. That's what's up. Oh my gosh. And thank you for your generosity and sharing it with our viewers. And I hope this truly inspires anyone who's watching, who's really out to make a career in dancing. Ashley Cruz, everyone.
Go out and get it.
Go out and get it. All right, but guess what? We spoke the business aspect of it, but when we return, she's going to perform for us, so don't go anywhere. everyone. Welcome back here now to perform. Let's give it up for Ashley Cruz.
I'm a sucker over love, smooth slip talk, anything he wants. I can provide it, I'm a writer, fulfill your desire, tell you baby what you want. I can be that if you, I can model that if you. This ain't it for them scary chicks, I handle my business. Said I don't know much, but I know that tonight I don't wanna be alone, be alone. Said I gotta make some contact with him, I know I'm on one, and everybody knows that I'm addicted to kissing and hugging, touching and rubbing. I'm a sucker for love, for love, for love, for love. If you're addicted to kissing and hugging, touching and rubbing, you a sucker for love, 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 for love. I'll do my best to keep you here all night long. I'm pulling out all my tricks, 'cause I don't ever want you going nowhere else for your fix. You're feeling that, your energy is so, it's our destiny, don't look back. I want it like that. I don't know much, but I know that tonight I don't wanna be alone, be alone. Said I gotta make some contact with him, I know I'm gonna hey, and everybody knows that I'm addicted to kissing and hugging, touching and rubbing. I'm a sucker for love, for love, for love, for love. If you're addicted to kissing and hugging, touching and rubbing, you a sucker for love, 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 for love. What you waiting for, baby? Move a little bit closer to me. You know you're gonna, I know you wanna, so why don't you quit playing? I wanna see what you working, what you working, what you working, what you working, what you working with, working, what you 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 working, working. You know I'm kissing and hugging, touching and rubbing. I'm a sucker for love, for love, for love, for love. Yeah, kissing and hugging, touching and rubbing. You was all for love, for love, for love, for love, for love, for love.
That was Ashley Cruz. And for more information, you can follow her on all social media platforms at Cruz with Ashley. That is our show today, mi gente. Thanks to all our guests for coming through, and to you, our viewers, for tuning in. If you missed any part of the show, you can check out the recapcast tonight, 24 hours a day at BronxNet.tv. I'm Rhina Valentin, and from all of us here at Open, may the universe provide paz, prosperity, y amor. Happy Latinx Heritage Month, mi gente. Adios.